Well, thanks for joining us. Deadline Live, Jacklet Oracle Broadcasting and affiliates. Don't want to forget all the great affiliates like Revere Radio out there that are picking us up. All you people out there that are streaming us in your places of work so everyone can hear what our guest today, Susan Lindauer, is saying. She is the author of the new book, Extreme Prejudice. It is out everywhere. It tells this story in a way that we probably can't tell it in an hour with commercials. That's the challenge that we face. So we'll be scratching the surface somewhat here. You got to get the book to fill in some of the blanks. Susan, thanks again for joining us. And one question I meant to ask you straight off to kind of qualify all of this. You were a CIA asset, and generally, as an employee of the CIA, you got to get clearance to write a book like this.
Here's the funny thing. As an asset, I was not, very good question, I was not a paid employee of the CIA. I was a private citizen who was fulfilling a special role in contact with CIA targets. And it's a very interesting role to play, but I was not an employee of the CIA, and my intelligence handler, Richard Fuse, who was, and who received $13 million in non-taxable income after 9/11. He received the money, and he got a ton of money, but I did not.
Well, you received confinement and the tax. That's what you received.
I was, yes,
but
yes.
But
Richard got it, yeah.
I wanted to ask that question because, people are always very suspicious when somebody blows the whistle. And I like to accept things at face value, but also be a little bit skeptical. So people are going to ask that question. So this book, completely without any clearance, without any oversight from the CIA. Okay.
Well, it's really funny because when they arrested me, it became quickly clear that they had not talked to my CIA handler, Richard Fuse, because he would have told them, he would have warned them that because I was working in anti-terrorism, he and I had agreed that I would have never sign a single non-disclosure agreement because the people that I was dealing with might put me in danger of my access to these people could be viewed in a conspiratorial sense if it was played the wrong way. So it would be imperative for me to have the right to say what I was doing and to bring clarity to the fact that I was trying to stop terrorism, not participating in it. And especially because I was dealing with Libya, Iraq, Egypt, Yemen, Syria, Hezbollah, and Malaysia. Okay, I was dealing with some heavy-duty sponsors of terrorism from the standpoint of the United States government, and I was against terrorism, but always, no question. But my CIA handler was like, "You have got to be able to protect yourself because, God forbid you get into a situation where they decide to punish you, and you're screwed. You'll be screwed." So what ended up happening is that when I did get arrested, I had a kind of a loaded gun pointed at the Justice Department, and they had a gun that didn't have any real ammunition in it because I really hadn't done anything wrong. I was accused of eating a couple of cheeseburgers.
Yeah, we'll get
with Iraqi
cheeseburgers and the Patriot Act. Let's try to keep things here for the audience.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so we left off. We're in about August of 2000.
August of 2001. I was told that an attack involving airplane hijackings and a strike on the World Trade Center was imminent, and that it was too dangerous for me to go back to New York, and that I should stay out of New York until after the attack. Where the CIA was confounded was that I then turned around and I had friends who were living in New York, my brother was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, and I told my brother to stay out of New York. I had friends who had family in the suburbs of New York, and I told him and his family members to stay out of New York. So I had witnesses who were civilians that I was telling other people about this attack. So what the FBI and the Justice Department never expected was that I could prove this through non-CIA sources. Now that's how we get them. But September 11th, there's one more thing that I need to tell you. On the date of September 11th, the first building had just fallen, and the second building was still standing. And Richard Fuse and I were on the telephone, and at this point, we were shouting at each other. I mean, shouting at the TV. I mean, the whole country was horrified and outraged and devastated. And Richard Fuse and I had a special feeling for this attack because we had expected it. We tried to stop it. we had busted our overtime trying to figure out what to do about it. And in August of 2001, Richard had instructed me to contact the office of the Attorney General John Ashcroft. I had contact numbers for his private staff in his personal office. That's about 20 people. And I had contacted those people and told them that we expected a major attack was imminent, and we asked for an emergency broadcast alert across all agencies of the Justice Department. The Attorney General John Ashcroft's private staff gave me a phone number to call at the Office of Counterterrorism, and they said, please repeat exactly what you just told us to them. And again, I repeated, we wanted an emergency broadcast alert through all agencies of the Justice Department for any fragment of intelligence on airplane hijackings. And I said, we believe there will be a strike on the World Trade Center. And then on the day of the attack, Richard Fuse and I are shouting at the TV, and Richard blurts out to me, Susan, how often do you think that people are that somebody's standing on a sidewalk with a video camera queued up to take a picture of a car crash? How often do you think that somebody's just standing there waiting with the camera all ready to go, and then lo and behold, there is a car crash right in front of them? And he said, and this was a day before the video footage was released of the airplanes flying into the World Trade Center.
Well,
let me be very specific.
Because people now are going to hear that and go, oh, well, everyone has a camera and everyone's running. They got a camera.
No.
One, they didn't.
No. To 2001, they didn't, and this camera was not whipped around. This was a steady shot, and what Richard Fuse said is, how often does this happen where a camera's queued up for a car accident? He said it never happens, and the camera's not whipped around. It's held constant. He said to me, Susan, those are Mossad agents who took that video footage.
And we know.
And at the time, hold on. At the time, sorry.
Well, we know that Israel had prior knowledge, so they've got a couple of their agents there filming this whole thing and just waiting for it to happen. We've heard about the dancing Israelis who seem to be very happy that all this was going on. Please continue.
No, it is very important because my reaction to that was, you mean to tell me that I've been looking for, I yelled at him. I got really upset. And I said, you mean to tell me I've been looking for this damn fragments of intelligence on this attack, and the Israelis knew about it the whole time and they didn't tell us? And I said, God, I was just screaming at the phone at that point. I was just hysterical. I mean, the World Trade Center had just collapsed. Okay, the first building had just collapsed. And I'm watching in horror as this building drops to the ground. And I'm like, you mean the Israelis knew? And I've been busting my ass trying to figure it out, and they didn't tell us? And the phone immediately clicked dead. And I called Richard, because I was getting pretty upset. And I called Richard back trying to sound more calm, and he said, Susan, we must never discuss that ever again. And I said, but I was still very upset. I said, but Richard. He said, no, Susan, we must never talk about that again.
We still have a lot of ground to cover with Susan Lindauer. Her book is Extreme Prejudice. We're here like you, listening to all of this and putting it all into perspective. ExtremePrejudiceUSA.wordpress.com is her website. Check it out. We'll be back for a final segment. Try to get through all of this and tie it all in. There's a lot to still cover. Stay with us. Deadline Live.